Hello everyone, today's internet curiosity will be about creating a web server in Erlang. Erlang is a programming language developed by Ericsson. They have an interpreter called OTP, which means Open Telecommunication Protocol, if I know it right, but correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. Here we can see what image should I show you first. I would like to show you first our web server code. So this is a fully functioning web server in the world of Erlang. The interesting thing is that I stumbled upon how to write the most simplest web server in Erlang. Obviously, you will find professional web server frameworks like Chicago is one of them, I think. I think that is the most popular, but this is the most simplest one. It has only one reasonable reason to exist, really, is to share files. For example, I have a very old Kindle ebook reader, and well, I am not logged onto the Kindle store to buy Kindle ebooks because many of the books I read or read are publicly available in the public domain, which means that they are absolutely free or free for personal use, depending if the title was purchased by Warner Bros. For example, War of the Worlds is a classical example about that. I think it's a Warner Bros. Movie. But again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Feel free to go there and complain about how wrong I am. Anyway, that is not the point. The point is that what we are trying to achieve here is either have a very simple homemade website for strictly home purposes, or we would like to have a file repository for each of our devices to be accessed by the IP address of the host server or host computer in this case. Of course, the host computer has a web server, so you know what I'm meaning about that. Okay, so what do we find here? We have a module, we export some functions. One of them is the main function, which calls the start function. Then there is this receive end block, which I really don't understand because I don't understand that much of Erlang. And then we can find our main run server function, which is what we need. We see that it starts an HTTP daemon. For those who don't know what is a daemon is, it is basically ferocious creature which resides on your computer in order to distribute websites. Just kidding, it is basically something. A demon in the Greek sense was a half god, half human being, which sole purpose was to observe and guard humans. They regulated them. So there came the idea, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, of these Linux developers at first, that they will create these daemons, which are basically processes which overlook some aspects of the operating system. So, example, the HTTP daemon will observe the HTTP traffic. the FTP daemon will observe the FTP traffic and so on. So this is the naming convention we are talking about. That is why we call it HTTPD and not HTTP server or HTTP, because HTTP is the protocol itself. It wouldn't make sense to call it that way. We are of course using port 18 because that is the default port. We could give another port to it, but then if we would try to access uh, our file repository, we would need to type in the port like this, and this is very uncomfortable, so we just use the default port 80. We give a server a name. I don't know why, but you can. I have left it this way because, well, why not? This was in the example code, so I guess it is important for other identification purposes. But as we can see, as the server runs, this will not have any importance at all. Next, we can see the server root and the document root. This is important because these will be the folders where the files will be served. This is the address which we will bind to. We will write this to localhost because we don't want this to be a remote server. We want this to be a local server only accessed by this computer that we are working on. And also, if we are so inclined, we can run our own web page. If we add the directory index parameter to this list, we can launch an index.html file which can have a spread spreadsheet bullshit style sheet attached to it, and next to a style sheet even some JavaScript, so all kinds of client side goodies. But we want to list the directory first, so that is our main goal. We are saving this file. Of course we will run the server itself, sure, but here I have gathered some notes. Well, first of all, how do we run our web server? So it is not, let us say, a process which just runs, you know, that you run it from command line, for example, with the OTP interpreter, with the Erlang interpreter, whatever you call it. And then you suddenly realize that, oh, it's time to close the window or something, and all the application is gone and it will not work, and so on. So the first step in figuring out how to solve this problem was to use PowerShell. PowerShell has a start process command. Here we will use the eScript interpreter because the eScript interpreter is only willing to run this web server. You can also use Erlang if I'm correct, but for this specific script it needs the eScript interpreter, and if you see at the process tree you can see that it actually runs eScript and Erlang at the same time, so this is some kind of addition to it. We only need eScript because we have already defined in our path variable. This is the path variable right here. If we edit it and there is something else here, for example, we have Heroku installed, which is a very nice application server service which you can rent online. You can also make any kind of hobby project which will hibernate itself if it's not used. It is really great. Just lengthens the startup time a little bit, but basically you can get a complete web server and a reserved address absolutely free. Next, we will have the path for all of the binaries of the 8.3 OTP Erlang interpreter executables. This includes eScript and of course Erlang too. So what do we need here? We only need to um, provide eScript. Um, the application will know the PowerShell command will know that what we are talking about is in the binary folder of Erlang. And next, we will put ampersands around it. So start process accept two parameters. One is the executable itself, and the other is the parameters. This is very strict. You have to separate them correctly in order for this command to work. And at the end, we will start our Hello Erlang web server. Then add it to Windows style hidden, and this is how we achieve that the command is run and the PowerShell command prompt returns to its basic state. So if you would like to shut down your web server, now you will have to go to the task manager and kill it from there. Okay, this is one two processes the S script exe and the other is exe. The other interpreter is exe. Sorry for my mistake. These are the exam names. Some executables do not display the trailing exe extension. Yes, that is true. Because only if escript exe is run, then the exe extension is displayed after ERL. Not in case if you are just running the regular Erlang interpreter. And these names cannot be changed, surprisingly. I have delved into this for a very long time, uh, finding out if there is any way to. Let me see if I'm recording still. I'm very nervous about that. Okay. So, what we am talking about? Yes. So, whatever kind of process you start. For example, you start escript.exe or php.exe or pacman.exe or any kind of thing like that. Unless you are renaming the exe file itself, the names cannot be masked. You cannot give an alias to it for the task manager to display it. So yes, we need an even more cleaner method. So that is how we turned to sc.exe. Now sc.exe is a curious kind of animal, I can say. First of all, in PowerShell, the exe extension must be explicitly used. If not, sc is some kind of alias. Microsoft didn't think this through. So what you can do is run sc.exe, hit enter, the help file will be immediately displayed and it will guide you through the steps of creating a process. However, the problem is that it will not really work. You see, when you are creating a service, a Windows service, you are either working with, in the most two popular situations, with the Delphi or with Visual Studio. These have specific, how should I say, specific frameworks for applications which should work like services, which means that if we are trying to make a service about an interpreter running a script, we cannot do that. So, yes, that will not work. SCXL will not work at all. So then some guy found about this problem and created an application called the non-sucking service manager. Yes, that's right, that's the name it's called. You only need to download it. It's a compressed file. NSSM is in the public domain, by the way. That is really awesome of them. Public domain means that you can do whatever you want with it. The MIT license is even more restricted. Like MIT license states that you must not fake that you are the owner of the product while actually it is made by someone else. So that is why I personally prefer the MIT license. But the public domain license means do whatever you want with it. You absolutely guaranteed to have full permission over your project. So you download it, you extract it, you have to run it from command line, because if you, let me see here, if you run the non-sucking service manager by itself, man, I cannot see today. Yes, here it is. See, only a half file is displayed. So, despite having a general user interface, NSSM exe will not make it easy for the user to use it from the command line. Let us start PowerShell, shall we? PowerShell. Okay, so here we are. PowerShell. What did I want to do? I wanted to start Notepad. So yes, if I type in Notepad, I don't have to say that C drive Windows \notepad. We only need to type in Notepad. So this draws us to the conclusion that the most asininely easy way is to put NSSM exe here in the Windows directory, because that is in the path executable even if it is not visible at first glance, and because it is a general purpose service creating program, it should belong there. So let us see what have we discussed yet. Okay, so yes, here it is. So we can run the general user interface with all the necessary options with the NSSM install service name. So what is the service name in this kind of instance? Well, NSSM. Yes, I have the current number of S's. Erlang web server test. Oh, how rude. But why? Oh, I see. We don't need this. I'm confused now. Um, Let us run it as an administrator. Yes, I would like to allow that. Run as SM. Oh, see, we need to be administrators. We can only run Notepad without administrator privileges. So NSSM install Erlang web server test. Mm. Oh, come on, give me a break. There's an extra S in it. Of course it is not recognized. Maybe that was my previous mistake. Too many S's. Oh yes. I need to remove that too. Okay, so this is what we should see if we are really pros and don't mess up all the time like I do. So yes, we only need these parameters. This is the first one. This is the second one. Really self-explanatory. We need the executable, we need the path to the executable, and then we need to path to the script, which is the parameter of the executable, to pronounce it in a more English way. Parameter, parameter, parameter. I need to practice that. Yes, I'm obviously making this video bad, by the way, so yes, you can expect quality like that. I mean, there is this Russian YouTuber called Nanook Meta who does Payday 2 videos, and his mother tongue is also not English or American or any kind of that. It is Russian. My mother tongue is Hungarian, and when he was making fun about his pronunciation and about his tiredness, I thought that this is so awesome that I need to do it also. So display name, yes, display name. Display name is this, and this is a simple application which runs an Erlang web server on port 80. Very important, kids. Okay, I accidentally pressed enter, but this is really what we need. We can also define dependencies, all kinds of this stuff, but I didn't want the starter type to be automatic. Let's see how can we correct that. Okay, so here we are at services.msc. For those who are not initiated, it is services.msc, like that. This is how you access the window. And we actually closed that. I'm too lazy to refresh it. Services.msc. Okay. Okay, so we should have two Erlang web server. This is the test, and this is automatic, and this is not run at the moment, but should run automatically. And it works. Great, so what we will do is that we check our local host, and here we are. We can also move to the parent directory. Really? No, we can't. That is restricted. I'm really great about that. Okay, so You can download index.html if you would really like to, but we really do not need this stuff here. I should show you how to remove it. We remove it by fc.exe, surprisingly, not with the non-sucking service manager. Mm. Let us see. Start, pause, continue, config, create, delete. Yes, delete. That is what we need. sc.exe. Delete. And Erlang web server test. Erlang web server test. And it is a success. A real success story. So we update it. No, not this way. This way we update it. Okay, so we don't do it this way. Why? Oh, that is why. Okay. Now again. No, still not ready. Uh, oh my god. Just want to update the window. Okay. So let us see if we are successful. We are not successful at all. Erlang web server test. It was Erlang web server test. What the hell? We need to take extreme measures now. NSSM remove. Okay. NSSM remove service name. That is interesting. So NSSM seems to prevent to delete it from fc.exe, but it should work theoretically. Show removal GUI, no, without confirmation. Yes, we want it without confirmation. But we are lazy. Can't delete service, make sure this service is stopped and try again if this error persists. Okay. Yes, because it is running, of course it is. Well, that is curious. Okay. So it is now gone. Yes, it is now gone. Okay. It was just messing up a little bit because it was deleted, but not quite because it was still running. So always make sure that you shut down your service before removing it. Yes, that is that is the uh, that is the conclusion of this session. So here we can set all kinds of things that should it be manual, we can start it and shut it down, and most importantly here we can set it to a remote address. Notice what will happen. What will happen now is that we will open this from localhost, but before that we will run this service, if it runs at all. It runs. So we'll load it this way. No luck. But if we type in our remote address, which is by the way assigned by our DHCP server located on our router, here we can have the directory. And this is how it is most useful. I mean, aside from being a simple web server, is because if you want to transmit files via the HTTP protocol without having an FTP server and having to set all that kinds of things up. Every kind of smart device has a browser nowadays, so this should be a more simpler alternative. Of course, in the near future, I will be putting this code up on a website which I will show uh, on my YouTube page. But before we are departing from this tutorial series, I wanted to show you if we have run through all the nodes. Yeah, so installing as a service the application itself has all kinds of benefits because NSSM not only ensures that the application is started and stopped via the services.msc control panel, it also ensures that if the service for some kind of reason stops, it tries to reboot it for a certain amount of intervals. So it is very useful for that. It makes the service more stable. Just to remind you of that. And yes, this is the last thing I would want to show you. Here we will tell that the directory index is index.html. And what we will do is the most simplest thing in the world. We shut it down, we start it, and here we can see that now web page is displayed. Hello world. Great, this can be much more complex by the way, so yes, you can do it this way. I wouldn't recommend this for desktop web applications. There is an application called oh my, I'm forgetting that name every time. But there is an alternative, that is the fact that I would like to point out to you. That will be our next tutorial series. It is what it is called. It is called Atomic, maybe. But we will. I'm advertising the guy because he made a video about it, and I know he's a cool guy and won't sue me because of this. Oh, not this one. Okay. So he's a hacker, by the way, not a penetration tester, a real hacker. He has very interesting shows about all kinds of things, even interviews. But there is this one thing, this application, which makes desktop applications out of a which makes a desktop application out of a web application. It is called, what the hell it is called? It was after Sandstorm EO. No, make an exam with HTML. This is Electron. It is called Electron. So yes, watch his video if you want to know more about that. I will show you an alternative made in Delphi Starter Edition. Starter Edition is strictly for free stuff, by the way, because if you reach an annual profit of $1,000, then you have to pay for the free version, for the professional version, not the free version, for the professional version. The free version is absolutely free, but if you make too much profit, I mean not just pocket money, then what will happen is that you will need to buy the professional version, which uh, is multiplied by $1,000. So you will not have the budget unless you are really willing to make all your own independent massive projects made in Delphi programming language. But it's still a useful programming language, and I will show you why in the next video to come. I hope I'm not out of sync, by the way. Uh, let's us end this. Okay. So here it is, our first additions video. Really odd video, which I intended to be about a web server made in a scripting language and about a service made by the interpreter by giving the interpreter the script as a parameter. Yes, that sums it up. Basically, that is what we have done. But it was great. So let us hope this will render fine and it will not have any lags or anything like that. I would pull my hair out if that would happen, but I have lowered my system resources. I mean, just look at this. Processor is at 50%, memory is at 34%. This is still considered a potato PC, by the way, and I definitely need an SSD here. That is the only point of upgrade that I have at this point. I have still a powerful GPU for a low profile GPU, of course. Not anything special, but yes, I hope this will work out well. So, still, from this video, you will not find the source code. For the source code, I will create a different page. For this different page, I will make a different video which will showcase only the address of that web page. And that web page will only have the sole purpose of hosting the example codes. So stay tuned for more at additions.